Today, we're going to talk about some of the signs that you are not ready to buy a house. I might do this as a two-parter. We will see. A lot of times people assume, well, like if I qualify, I'm ready to buy, right? Not necessarily, okay? So we're going to talk about some of the reasons you may not qualify, which is definitely a sign that you're not ready to buy. And then we're going to talk about some of the reasons where you do qualify, but it's just not the right time, okay? Because here's the thing. It's not always the right time to buy, and it's not always the right time to wait. It depends on your unique individual situation. So if anyone's ever saying to you, oh, you should always buy, I don't agree with that. I don't. I think it depends on your situation. So let's talk about like just some of the first ones where it's like clear you're not ready yet. Credit. Okay, if you're currently having trouble paying your bills on time and your credit score is really low, yeah, you got to clean that up first. You know, if you're having trouble paying your bills, unless you're going to be going into a mortgage that's lower than your rent, going into a higher mortgage, it's just going to make things worse. So you want to make sure that your credit's in a stable place where you're comfortably making payments. Maybe you want to pay off debt first. Do it. Maybe you want to make sure that you don't have more than XYZ going to credit card payments. Great. You need to be in a stable credit position. Okay. You don't have to have 800 credit, but if you have 400 and you haven't paid anything in a few months, obviously you're not ready. Okay. Now let's say you're mid-range credit. You're like, Jen, I'm at 680, which is good. Like 680 is fine. But I'm stressed out every month and a mortgage payment's going to be higher. Okay. At that point, buying a house doesn't make sense. What needs to happen is you need to do a budget and figure out how to get rid of some of that debt or some of those loans or whatever is stressing you out before you take a step to a house. Because even if I can qualify you for that house, if you're already feeling financially stressed here, going up a couple $100 a month is going to be terrible. Terrible. And that's the thing. Most of the time, going from a rental to a mortgage is more expensive. Okay. Of course, certain exclusions around the country, but overall, going from a rental to a mortgage is generally more expensive. Okay. So credit's number one. Number two, income. You need some level of stability with your income. So regardless of the loan type, we're going to be looking for a 2-year history, meaning that you've been gainfully employed for 2 years. Now, if you're like, oh, shoot, I've been employed for 5, but I just switched to a new job. Is that a problem? Not necessarily. Like, we just have to look at how you're getting paid. If you suddenly went from salary to commission, yeah, that's a problem. We're going to need 2 more years. But there's a big misconception that you have to be at the same job for 2 years. That's not correct. Or you have to be in the same line of work. Not correct. You have to be gainfully employed, and the lender, me, has to be able to justify your income. So commission, if you're doing multiple part-time jobs, if you're like, Jen, I have 3 jobs, I need to use them all. Guys, I need a 2-year history of that. Okay. The other thing is, think about where you work right now. Are you happy? Okay. Now everyone's going, no, Jen, I hate work. It's work, really? Okay. Let's put that within bounds. Do you think you're going to continue working there for a while? Okay. And if you're like, no, I'm already looking for other jobs. Okay. Where are those other jobs? Because sometimes I'll talk to a buyer and they totally qualify to buy. But when we really start digging into what's going on, they're actually applying for other jobs in other states. If you're unhappy where you work, or if you're thinking like, hey, I'm not going to be at this place long, to get to the next step, I have to go somewhere else. You shouldn't be buying a house. It's that simple, because if you're not happy here, but you buy a house close to here, well, that caps you from going over there. Okay. So really think about your employment situation. Are you likely to stay in that area to be happy or to get to the next level? Is there somewhere else you would end up living? A different county, a different state? You just don't want to be tied somewhere if you're already thinking like that. Okay. And we've had clients where I've literally approved them and I've been like, you can't buy a house. You can, but you shouldn't. And they're like, why? And I'm like, you're literally applying for jobs in another state. Like, all this is going to do is trap you in this job you don't like. I don't want to be a part of that. Let's find that job in the other state that's your dream job, and then let's buy a house there. That actually happens more often than you would think, guys. So the other part to that is sometimes I get these calls And I get it. Like, I don't think, it's hard to be self-aware, and it's hard to really recognize you're so close to the situation that it's hard to look outside of it. But sometimes I'll be on a call talking to someone about their housing goals, and they'll mention the area that they're looking in they don't like. They'll be like, yeah, the crime's crap and the houses are expensive and the schools aren't great. And I'm like, why are you buying there? And they're like, oh, well, it's like where I live now. Okay. Do you have to live there? Well, no, I guess not. Okay. I mean, you've told me 5 times in this conversation that you hate the area, so I don't think you should buy there. Where do you want to live? Right? And that's a question a lot of people are just getting within the last 3 years. Telework is huge now. So many more people can work remote than ever. And everyone's still on this mentality that you have to stay in the same area. Right? Like, I think it's because it's such a new concept where it's like, if you work remote, guys, you can work anywhere. Anywhere. So where do you want to live? Where do you want to live? If you close your eyes, what's the weather like? Is it warm? Is it cold? What is it? Right? Do these exercises with yourself. Don't just buy in the neighborhood you've lived in for 20 years because you think that's what you have to do. If you can work remote, the whole country is your oyster. Dive in. That sounds so weird. But you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, open your mind to that. That is new thinking. That is not something that was really popular up until telework became popular in the last few years, or remote work. Don't buy somewhere you don't like. If you're thinking, like, if you're on a phone call with someone like me and I say, hey, you've said you haven't liked this area 5 times in the last 10 minutes, that's a sign you're not ready to buy there. It's that simple. Because sometimes people go, well, if I don't like it, I can just move. You've already told me you don't like it. So why are we doing this? Where do you want to live? Where do you want to be? Ask yourself the question. It's okay. I know there's so many people where it's like you were never allowed to ask those questions, but I'm telling you right now, ask the questions. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to live? Right? It's a whole big country out there. So that's another red flag that you're not ready to buy. So income, we talked about, we need some level of stability. Where you actually want to live is important. The other one that I would bring up, and I see this sometimes, is that I'll see, maybe a couple qualifies together, and then I get a call the next week and I hear, hey, can you take her off the loan? We're breaking up. And then the next week, can you add her back on the loan? We're back together. And then a month from now, we broke up again. Take her off. I need to know okay, guys. Until this relationship is stable, you guys should not be looking for a house. It's that simple. So another key component of this is, what is your relationship stability, or who are you potentially buying this house with? How do they tie into it? Okay, very important. If you guys are in that position where you're going back and forth, I've seen how that ends. I've seen the couple where they went back and forth, then they bought the house together. Guess what? I get a call from the guy a year later. He needs to refi to get her off because they broke up permanently this time. So before you're buying a house with someone, and if you're having these things where they're like, well, I don't want to be on the loan, you need some stability in that income before you make a big decision. Because seriously, owning a house together is harder to get out of than marriage. Marriage, you can file for a divorce. Owning a house together, to get them off, you have to refinance, which means you have to have equity. Like, there's so many people that bought houses in 2020, 2021, crazy low rates, or they refied. Now they're divorced or they're split up. No one wants to get the other person off the loan because the rates are so low. So one person's either trapped with this debt chasing them, right? If they weren't married and they can't separate it out in agreement, or someone's going from a 3% payment to a 7% payment, So really, really think about it. And if you're with your partner as well, another sign you guys aren't ready to buy is if you completely disagree on everything, right? If there's no common ground, like, it's not going to go well. If you want a $5,000 a month payment and they want nothing over $2,000 a month, before you get in a car, you guys need to come together on that budget. It's that simple. You don't want one person feeling like they got shorted or one person feeling like they're never going to sleep because they're going to be house poor. You have to come together on that. So look, there's a lot of signs you're not ready to buy a house, but those are the ones that just, to me, are so obvious. And look, if you guys are uncertain or you have questions, get on our calendar, talk to Sandy, talk to Alyssa, talk to me, text me and be like, Jen, I think I'm ready, but I'm not sure. I'm always happy to sit here and play, the antagonist and be like, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Because here's the thing. Can buying being a great investment? Yeah. Do I think you should ultimately own property? Yes, I do. I think that, I'm always thinking about when I'm 70 or when I'm 80 years old because lifespans are getting longer. And I think about, oh my God, how much is rent going to be when I'm 70? Right? Whereas right now, if I pay off the mortgage I have, I just have taxes and insurance, which is going to be a lot less than rent. And that's going to make it so that one day I can retire. So I do think that owning a piece of property is a good move. I also think that, when I think about my son, I want to make sure I have something to give him because I am worried about what property prices will be in the next 20, 30 years. So I do think it's important long-term for your financial stability to own a house and hopefully have paid it off. Okay. But not the wrong house and not at the wrong time and not with the wrong person. So does it have to be perfect? No, but you want to make sure that you're at least not running into something that you're going to regret. So as always, I'm licensed in 48 states to do mortgages. I would love to help you and answer any questions you have. Thanks for watching, guys.